Hi, everybody. This is Richard Carafell from Agility, and welcome to PR Profiles, a podcast and video series where we chat with experts in the PR and communications industry, because we think PR is the most formidable, dynamic, and rewarding field there is. And we wanted to introduce you to some of our favorite powerhouses in the industry. And today, we're speaking with Brooke Gabbert, the Director of Communications at Study.com. Hi, Brooke.
Hi, Richard. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you. First of all, just tell us a little bit about yourself and Study.com.
Yeah, sure. So I have 2 decades of in-house PR counsel supporting all things PR as an in-house person generally does. My time at Six Flags involved roller coaster openings and a lot of crisis comms to when I moved to Home Advisor in tech, it was IPOs and acquisitions. I've most recently transitioned into ed tech, and I worked for a startup for a while, and now I'm at Study.com, where we support 30 million learners a month in achieving their academic goals.
All right, thank you. That's a very well-rounded background. I'm sure you picked up a lot of things along the way from all of those things. So, all right, we're just going to jump right in here. So let me ask you this. So in a previous interview for Business Radio X, you said Study.com has a startup mentality despite not really being one. So how is that mentality reflected in your communication strategy and PR activities?
Yeah, so I am the communications and PR is fairly new at Study.com. Even though we've been around several decades, they've been very focused on building a great learning platform and not necessarily focused on the marketing branding aspects. So during COVID, we really invested in that, and I was brought on. And what I found the experience to be is a lot of opportunity to innovate and be creative. Building a program from the ground up, you get to throw a lot on the wall and see what sticks, and then iterate on that or not if it didn't stick. And I think having the seasoned perspective that I do, I can see where the company needs that support to scale. We prior to COVID, all employee communications were done in office. We were a very in-office team, and now about a third of us don't live in Mountain View in the office, and so there was a need to supplement how we did all hands communications. And so being able to kind of see that down the road and make suggestions and come up with opportunities and solutions for the team has been really exciting.
Cool. Yeah, that's great. It's nice to hear that companies like Study.com, are realizing that, PR marketing is an important part of their strategic process overall and are incorporating it more. So that's wonderful. Thank you. All right. Now, over your career, like you said, you moved from theme parks to home improvement websites to education. Now, what changes in your approach to PR and communications when moving to a new industry with a new audience have changed, and what stays the same?
It's always hard to get up to speed on a new industry. You have to be a sponge, right? And learn all the new reporters and the new terms and the trends. And I find that takes a good 6 months to a year to really integrate yourself. But beyond that, the tenets of PR and media relations remain the same. And I was really reminded of that last week. I was at a conference in DC. It was a higher education media conference. Reporters from the Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, New York Times, USA Today, and over again, you heard the same comments, which I think apply no matter what your industry. And those, they're basically the tenets are: research, don't pitch me what I don't cover, right? So I think that applies whether you're pitching a home improvement reporter or you're pitching an education writer. They said be consistent, which in PR we know we're always feeling like we're stalking, but they couldn't iterate enough how busy they are and how much they appreciate if we have a good resource for them and we have a good targeted pitch, that we are persistent with them. So I think those tenets apply across industries, and just being able to get to know the reporters is probably the biggest hurdle. But once you do that, once you have your playbook, it's pretty easy to implement.
Yeah, there you go. That's very well said. Thanks. Yeah, it's kind of like the situation changes. The situation remains the same, but only the names have changed, right?
Exactly.
All right. Good. Okay, now in PR, we often focus on external communications and the role it plays in telling a brand's story, building authority and credibility. But how and where does internal communications fit into building a brand story and credibility?
Yeah. I am so excited about internal communications right now for PR folks. I think it's a big opportunity caused by a couple things. I think one, the remote office, the hybrid gives communications an opportunity to really show how we can communicate effectively across employee groups and mobilize employees, even though we're not all in the same space. I think it's really important to consider your employees as stakeholders and not, really understand what their needs are. I think employees are demanding more of companies now when it comes to communication, when it comes to what they're doing in the community. And so really exciting time. And I think PR folks are in a unique position to elevate that for companies.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's so true. That's a challenging time for internal communicators. Things are converging, such as the remote and hybrid workplace that's going on, as well as all the diversity and inclusion talk within companies, and several other factors. So the increases or boosts the need for internal comms, but certainly increases the challenges. All right, thank you. We've had a lot of agency pros on our show share their perspectives on building client relationships and setting expectations. Now, what is it like from the other side as an in-house department working with an agency?
Sure. Yeah. So I've worked with a lot of agencies. I've worked with the high end, New York City agency to the small boutique, small town, 2 to 3 publicist agency. And what I found the key to success as driving their work in-house is to be really focused and make sure that they have all of the tools they need for that one goal or 2 goals or 3 goals that you've given them. But I feel like it's really hard for a PR agency to come in and you hand them, everything, the whole platter, and you're like, go do something with this. I find that is as you're not in-house, you don't have all the advantage of knowing some of the nuances. You don't see the day-to-days, right? And so giving a focused project to an agency, I found really success with that. For example, we currently work with the Abbey agency, and we brought them on a year ago to help us create and elevate a social impact program that we were doing. And we knew we wanted it to be around the teacher pipeline, teacher certification. We have a study.com has teacher test prep as part of our offerings. And so we have a really good teacher test prep. We know people use it and pass it. We wanted to get it out there and help with an issue that is systemic across the nation, where teaching testing barriers are creating problems for teachers getting into the classroom. So we worked with the Abbey agency to concept it and launch it there in Nevada, and we've gotten over 100 articles since we've launched it. And I think it's just been a focus of, it was a really great idea. We've hit a really sweet spot. We've got a great internal partnership team building the partners that we're working with, departments of education, districts. But it was the Abbey agency and that focused work on here's our goals, here's where we want to be, right? We want to hit these media verticals, we want to hit these journalists, and we want to get this level of thought leadership around this issue or this initiative. And I find that that's a real successful way to work with agencies.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, and I must say, I think you're in good hands there, because we're good friends with Abby Whitaker and her colleagues at the Abbey Agency, and they do great work over there. So wonderful. Well, that's a great example, and thank you for sharing that. All right, now let me ask you this: what's the best thing about being in PR?
I've had a really fun career. As I was thinking about this question, I was reflecting back on all of the neat opportunities I've gotten to do. It's been very versatile. I got to be on the NASDAQ floor ringing in the bell for when HomeAdvisor went public. I've been on the Today Show green room when Greg Louganis was back there waiting to, talk about gay marriage being legalized. I've had opportunities like last week in DC in front of, esteemed journalists, and we got to go sit at the Washington Post offices and hear a panel from senior editors and talk with them afterwards about what's going on in their newsroom. And so it's been really fun and exciting. At Six Flags, I got to, figure out how to mount a camera on a roller coaster for media day when we were opening roller coasters, or the crisis comms. All of that sort of has been, a good rounding out of my career, but it's all been so much fun.
Right. That's interesting. Working for a place like Six Flags must be unique with
Very,
the challenges and the opportunities of both.
yeah,
Yeah, that's cool.
it's
Very
called
neat. Very
on
neat.
the ground.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Now, okay. Now, what is a common myth about PR that you'd like to debunk?
Yeah, I think, and I think if I was the common myth that if I was going to debunk would be more towards people who hire PR folks, like it's executives or companies, just to understand that not everything is PR worthy. And yes, you might have a great story, you might have an amazing product, but it might not be PR worthy at that moment, and you might not be hitting the right messaging or the right audiences, right? And so I've had I've worked for a company once, and the founder came in and said, "Why aren't I on the cover of Forbes?" Well, I think we've all
Right.
probably in PR have those kind of moments in our career, right?
Sure.
And as I was thinking about this question, I thought, it's really sort of the myth is not everything. And I used to think everything could have a sprinkle of PR dust on it and become newsworthy, but I've learned that it's not everything's PR worthy. And I think as a PR professional, really having that discernment to know when to push and when to say, hey, this is a blog post, or hey, this is more of an internal newsletter. That's, I think, really kind of the myth that I would like to bust.
Yeah, that's very good. Very well said too. And yeah, we've had some commentary about the difference between newsworthy and noteworthy, items. Everything maybe warrants some visibility or mention at some point, but some things are better left to the trades, I guess. That is
Yep.
a good way to say it. If it's not something that's going to interest, people in the industry, particularly if not everyone. So, all right, thank you. That is a good myth that needs to be debunked. All right, thank you. Now, what has been, this is kind of a bittersweet question, but what has been your biggest failure and what were the lessons you learned?
Um, there's been a lot of time, not a lot of times, a couple times I can remember where I've put my foot in my mouth. And that's been a process of me being either too aggressive or not following like the approval process, or just really not taking a step back to think through what am I, either, sharing with this reporter, or how, maybe, that's sort of the not really being as thoughtful in an approach as you should be, which has backfired for me. And I think what I've learned is take the time, respect the process, respect the approvals. You don't have to, I think I felt as a young PR professional really aggressive in getting the story. You've got to get the story right, and like at all costs. And the costs actually come back on you as the PR person. And so I think I've really learned to have that, that slow down, that step back, that, hey, like we can sit on this. If the news cycle runs on without us, it does. But we're not going to put ourselves at risk.
Yeah, that's a very good one. Yeah, it certainly can be a kind of a trial by fire experience, can it?
Yeah.
When you're breaking into the industry and developing relationships with reporters. Great. Okay, now how about this? I guess this is a good segue for this. What advice would you give students or people that are just starting out in PR?
I think the biggest thing that I am thinking a lot about right now for PR folks, and especially coming into the profession, is you should learn and promote digital literacy. It is one of the most important issues right now, not only to PR, but to democracy, and really understanding how to be digitally literate and what it constitutes fake news, and being able to have those conversations with your friends and your family or your colleagues, being educated on how to have those conversations. There's a lot of great courses. I know PRSA is offering one. I know there's some universities that have digital literacy courses, but I think that's just something that, I've seen some online ones. Just really, we're in a unique position as PR people to really have that forefront and to be a champion for it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, and that is fantastic advice. Digital literacy is so important, and it's so easy to get confused or lost, in the millions of messages that go out these days about what's true and what's not true. So being able to see through that is so important. All right, wonderful. Okay, now finally, Brooke, how can people connect with you?
Sure, yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn or email me bgabbert@study.com. And if you Google me, you'll find me somewhere, probably.
Okay.
Most people in PR, I've been a spokesperson enough that you'll be able to find me, but most likely LinkedIn.
Okay, there you go. Thank you. All right. Okay, everybody, that's all the time we have. And again, we've been chatting with Brooke Gabbert, the Director of Communications at study.com. So thanks for joining us today, Brooke. It's been great having you.
Thanks, Richard. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. We hope you enjoyed this episode of PR Profiles brought to you by Agility. Before you go, have you thought about your media monitoring needs for next year, especially social media monitoring? Because we'd love to give you a free demo of Agility social listening so you can ring in the new year with in-depth insights on the social conversations that are happening around your brand. So visit agilitypr.com today to learn more about social listening and sign up for a demo. All right, thanks everybody for tuning in. I'm Richard Carethel with Agility PR Solutions, and we'll see you on the next episode.